Thank you to our speakers. I'm happy to say we're 6 for 6 on great sessions, and I know we've got a fascinating one coming up. We move now into a conversation at the crossroads of technology, finance, and freedom, a topic that continues to spark global debate. The title is Decentralizing Power, the Future of Money, Media, and Digital Freedom. The session explores how emerging technologies are reshaping structures and shifting the balance of influence in the digital age. Moderating this session is Pavlovski, board member of Macedonia 2025 and founder and CEO of Rumble Inc. And we are honored to welcome to the stage a global pioneer of the field of digital finance, Paolo, the CEO of Tether. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, everyone. So on stage with me right now, I have Paolo, the CEO of Tether. I'm going to give a little brief overview of who's sitting here. I think it's a big deal to have this guy in this country right now, and I think Macedonia should be very proud that he took the time in his busy day to be here. Tether is... You guys made $13.7 billion in profit last year. That's more than Tesla and Oracle combined. And yeah, that's almost the GDP of Macedonia in profit. So let's put that into perspective. You guys just recently, even more importantly, if you take a look at companies around the world, and I can't think of another company that has more profit per employee in the entire world. These guys, you guys are making like over $100 million plus per employee that they have in their business. There's nothing like this in the world. Yeah. You guys have also done lots of amazing things around the world. You guys are shareholders of the football team Juventus. You've recently invested $775 million in Rumble, the company I'm the CEO and chairman of. And you guys have done countless other investments, hundreds from what I take. But before we start asking Paolo some questions here, I'd like to get a feeling from the crowd. How many people here actually understand what Bitcoin is? Hands up. So we're like 50% on the Bitcoin side. And how many here actually understand what a stable coin is? Even less.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're gonna have to start off with a little primer on a little 101 on Bitcoin and stable coins. So, Paolo, what's a Bitcoin?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here. It's a big honor and pleasure. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to wander a little bit around the country. Well, mostly lunch and dinner. Great food, great wine. So I'm very, very happy about that. And also, I've been having different meetings. I think that Macedonia is a great place, is potentially the land of opportunities. I'm very bullish on boutique countries that have less than 10 million citizens, because they are the ones that can innovate faster, they can build faster, they can move faster and adapt in a better way to the changes of time, from artificial intelligence to digital assets, because these are the two biggest themes that are going to revolutionize the tech industry and the finance industry in the next decades. You can see, like, the United States has put David Sachs in charge of both of these two topics, because they are very transformational. So what is Bitcoin? I think that there are different definitions. Bitcoin is a currency that moves on this technological layer called blockchain. What I like about Bitcoin is that it's the first currency that has a limited supply of 21 million, and is a currency and is the only, it is the only currency ever created that is governed by math. Usually currencies are governed by people, and people change. People respond to different needs in different times, but usually, what is happening is that people tend to print and keep printing and inflating the size of national currencies. That is happening everywhere. Think about Turkey with the Turkish lira. They had 50% inflation. I was very glad to hear that inflation here is around 3%. This is great. But usually when you think about most of the countries, most of the currencies in the world, they are heavily, heavily inflated. Like Argentina, the Argentinian peso, for example, lost 98% of its value against the US dollar in the last 10 years, and the Turkish lira lost around 80% of its value against the US dollar in the last 5 years. So Bitcoin is the first currency that is governed by math. There is nothing more secure in the universe than math. You cannot change Bitcoin, no one can change Bitcoin. So it's the certainty. And I think that when people think about money, they should think about the concept of certainty. You want to wake up every single morning of your life and knowing that how much you have and how much value and wealth you hold compared to the changes of time. And so that's, to me, that's the fundamental thing that math is governing Bitcoin is very important, because I don't want to think about, in 4 years there will be another government, they will have different monetary policies, so who knows what will happen to my currency. How you can project your life in that way, right? So I think the beauty of Bitcoin is exactly this, giving a certain, a feeling of certainty that was never present in life before.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies now that are adopting Bitcoin. Obviously, you guys just announced 21 Capital recently. We at Rumble adopted the Bitcoin treasury strategy. We now own Bitcoin as part of our company. I see this adoption increasing and accelerating. It starts slow, and then it just all of a sudden happens. And it's only a matter of time till the very large companies start putting some of their finances into Bitcoin. Now, let's move to Tether and stablecoins. So Tether, from my perspective, it's just a fact, they're the world's largest stablecoin. Nothing is bigger than Tether. And like I said, they make more profit than Oracle and Tesla combined. But I don't think a lot of people understand what a stablecoin is and understand how influential Tether really is globally. And what I've learned over the course of many years and understanding what Tether does, it's extremely powerful. And if you don't know it by the name Tether, you might know it by the name of USDT. That's what Tether is. And I'll let you kind of elaborate and tell everyone here what Tether does and what's a stablecoin.
So Tether as a company was born in 2014. The first product of Tether was USDT, that is this digital dollar. We have many digital dollars. We had it in the past decades. Mostly, for example, PayPal is considered a digital dollar, but is a dollar that resides on a centralized database, that is the PayPal servers. Then you have other types of digital dollars. Still, again, they are always been centralized into some database like Venmo, Zelle, all these payment apps. Lot of finance now is digital nowadays. So what Tether did in 2014 is taking this concept of a dollar that needs to be adapted to the changes of time, a dollar for the digital economy, but instead of using a traditional database, started to use a decentralized database called blockchain. So in 2014, the simple quote-unquote idea of Tether was, why we don't take the groundbreaking technology that Bitcoin created called blockchain, but instead of putting a new token, like a random token, we put on top of a blockchain the most used currency in the world, and that is the US dollar, and that is also the best product in a certain sense that the US ever created. So that was the simple but extremely powerful realization of Tether in 2014. And why we did that? 2014, of course, we come as a company from, we are born from the digital asset industry, from the Bitcoin industry. And 2014 was a completely different time than today in the digital asset industry. Today there are hundreds and hundreds of different cryptocurrency exchanges. In 2014 there were 5, 6. Mt. Gox, that was a famous one, blew up, and there were few left. Bitfinex, Bitstamp, Coinbase, Kraken, OKCoin, and BTC China. Pretty much that's it. The issue of traders trading on these cryptocurrency exchanges in 2014 was the problem of arbitrage. The arbitrage is that simple activity that keeps all the different markets in line for the same asset. For example, you want to, if you see that there is a price discrepancy of an asset like the Apple shares between two exchanges, what you would do is you would sell the Apple shares on the exchange where the price is higher and buy back on the exchange where the price is lower, right? Simple as that. You can apply the same concept to Bitcoin. So in 2014 and 13, in many days, during many days, there were spreads of more than 10% across different cryptocurrency exchanges. And you would think like, great, I can sell Bitcoin on the exchange where the price is higher and buy it back on the exchange where the price is lower, and I can cash in easy 10%. Like that was the best trade ever. But the problem is that in order to do so, you have to move Bitcoin from one exchange to another. Of course, that is very easy because it takes 10 minutes. The block time, so every 10 minutes, the Bitcoin blockchain creates a new block so that, you know, every 10 minutes, give or take, you can move Bitcoins, right? Now, moving Bitcoin is easy, but moving dollars back then in 2014, especially across cryptocurrency exchanges that were not seen in good light by central banks, was very difficult. It would take 1 day, 3 days, 1 week, you know, weekends not allowed to move dollars. So what was making impossible for the arbitrageurs to basically trade, because the opportunity after 6 hours, 1 day, 5 days is gone. Like, so maybe it's reversed and you move Bitcoin, but you cannot, if you cannot move cash fast enough, the entire trading opportunities go away. So the idea of USDT was, why, since Bitcoin can move from one exchange to another in 10 minutes, why we are not using the same technology to move dollars? And that's how USDT was born. For the first 2 years, we didn't have any luck to explain to anyone, even in our industry, why USDT was important, why the hell we created it. I mean, it was like really a hard sell. No one would really understand it. But in 2016, at the end of 2016, what happened was that an exchange called Poloniex adopted USDT as their digital dollar, and so started trading USDT across all the different trading pairs. So Bitcoin versus USDT, Ethereum versus USDT, all the different crypto tokens versus USDT. Bitfinex, that was an exchange that we own as a group of people, also had USDT back then, right? But from 2014 to 2015 and early 2016, only Bitfinex had it, and 2016, Poloniex added USDT. And after the day Poloniex added USDT, immediately all the arbitraging opportunity between the two exchanges blew up. So immediately in the following days and months, the volume of the two exchanges became 20 times the volume of all the other exchanges, just because the ability of moving money and arbitraging was so efficient that would be not comparable to anything seen in finance before. So in 2017, that was the first year that cryptocurrencies became very popular. There was the ICO moment. ICO means initial coin offering. That made cryptocurrencies well known to the broader public. So Binance was born in 2017. Most of the new exchanges were born in 2017 and 18. And that all of them, they didn't have bank accounts. They only had USDT as their digital dollar. And so that is basically how in 2017, at the end of 2017, Tether USDT got to the first billion in market cap and grew from there over the next years. And then we can go on why it grew.
Yeah, and in terms of market cap now, you guys are well over $100 billion of market cap, and you are where do you stand in terms of how much treasuries you guys buy, and what's the business model behind that, and how do you drive the profits you're driving right now? So
right now, I think today our market cap is just past, I think in the last hour, $150 billion. So it's a nice and round number. Thank you. One crazy thing is, you asked me how we make money. Imagine we have more than 125 billion in US treasuries, short maturity, around 3 months. And so they yield between 4 and 5% per year. So without doing much, like sitting in the chair, it's like 125 billion in US treasuries multiplied by 4 or 5%.
When I was looking at that like a month ago, you guys are buying more US treasuries than Canada.
Yeah.
Alone, a single company. One of the largest buyers. Where do you guys stand in terms of how much you guys buy versus other countries?
Just finishing off, we have, otherwise we would seem like we are 150 billion in the market cap and only 125 billion in treasuries. Then the rest we have actually around 170 billion in total in company assets. So we have 20 billion more. So which part of them are in gold, part of them are in Bitcoin, and then we have the other hard assets and very high liquid assets. Plus we have investments, as we said, right? So the companies, we over-collateralize by $20 billion our reserves. That is pretty unique when you see like many banks doing fractional reserve, of the pace of 90% fractional reserve, so 10% hard asset, and the rest is basically just a balance sheet checking account. Then on our side, we believe that fully reserved banking is USDT created the first fully reserved bank in a certain sense. Yes, we have more T-bills than UAE, Spain, Australia, and many other countries. In the global ranking, Tether is not a nation, but we would be the 18th largest nation of holding US treasuries. Last year, in 2024, we were the 5th largest purchaser single purchaser of US treasuries. So when you see on one side China and Japan selling, for example, US treasuries, China for competitive reasons and Japan, for example, just to protect their national currency, the Japanese yen, that is living a hard time. On the other side of the spectrum, there is Tether, that is the 5th largest purchaser of US treasuries in 2024. It's crazy. I mean, a small company that's made like by 100, slightly above 100 employees was able to achieve these results. And honestly, one important figure is that we grew very fast to the hundreds of millions of users. Today, we have more than 420 million users globally, especially in emerging markets, developing countries. And at least half of that growth happened up to 2022. And we started adding a marketing team. We didn't have a marketing team until 2022. So basically, I wish we could claim that we were so good in growing this company, this market cap, but the reality is that we created the simplest product ever that is actually needed by billions and billions of people. All the unbanked, and there are 3 billion people in the world that are called unbanked, right? Someone refers to them as a niche. it's like half of the population of the world is like considered a niche, but those are the people that live with maybe $2 per day in salary, and so those are the people that we serve with USDT. Something maybe we can talk about it later, but that's how we see the shift of USDT usage between cryptocurrency trading, digital asset trading, and more broad usage.
This also kind of dovetails into like Rumble in a way. You guys are doing something so revolutionary on the financial front, and also facing a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure, and everyone's fighting back against you guys, kind of the same way Rumble dealt with that over the last 4 years. Now that you guys are so big and so prevalent around the world, is this the new financial system? Do you see this like overtaking the traditional finance, and how do you see that going into the future?
Up to 2020, the market cap of USDT was a few $1 billion. Then something happened in 2020. So if you see the chart of growth of USDT, it's fairly steady up to 4 billion for the first 6 years, and then immediately in 1 year, in 2020, jumps. What happened in 2020? The pandemic. We recently, because at Tether we spend a lot of time in trying to understand, also retroactively, what we created and how it is impacting the world. When especially having a product that has been distributed and had a lot of success through word of mouth. It's not like you put some advertisement budget and then you see the performance of it and you see the ramification of the impact of that budget. It's actually when things spread, independently and at the pace of Facebook, because USDT adoption grows by 30 million new wallets per quarter. It's almost like a social network. And is a social network. Money is a social network. And so what happened in 2020 with the pandemic is that if you think about it, USDT is very popular, as I said, in emerging markets, developing countries. If you are an Argentinian person, would you prefer to hold the Argentinian peso or a US dollar? If you are a Turkish person, would you prefer the Turkish lira or the US dollar, right? And so the people live in high inflation countries and countries that have a currency, a national currency that is devaluating very fast against US dollar, have the highest incentive of using USDT. The emerging markets, developing countries, are also the countries that have the highest youth, right? They're making more children, so they have the more youth, more kids, and all that. From 2017, that is the moment when cryptocurrency became popular, to 2020, all this youth in the emerging markets, developing countries, really started to use crypto. Became very familiar with crypto. In 2020, this young youth was looking at their parents that, in 2020 with the pandemic, parents started losing their jobs. Economies in the emerging markets, developing countries, started to fall apart much faster. So the parents started to do even more what they were used to do in the past. So going out in the streets and buying cash dollars for 10% premium. But with the pandemic, there was more risk because you go in the streets when you are not supposed to be in the streets because there were lockdowns. And then on top of that, you had still to pay a huge premium for your dollars. For the first time, I think, in the entire financial history, the kids taught to their parents that there was a better way to hold dollars, and it was through a smartphone. So the kids were like, I have a dollar here on my smartphone. Why the hell you are going in the streets, putting yourself in danger just to buy overpriced dollars? And so I think that is, and by the way, we realized that recently, that's why I'm saying, we go back and we try to understand ourselves, our own history, and how it all developed, because it helps us to understand the future. But I think this is the most touching and humble realization that we ever had at Tether, because that is an impact, and it's so good to see, right, that kids teaching their parents how to approach money is very touching to me. And so at that time, so USDT adoption started growing very fast, and now, as I said, we have 400 million users in the emerging markets. And I believe that this is what really pissed off, just so it doesn't seem I go in a very long rant, this is why I think is very meaningful what you said about financial institutions and the traditional finance and how we are perceived as disruptors. In a certain way, I think that one of the things that pisses me off the most is how is possible that a small company like Tether made more for financial inclusion with the hundreds of millions of people that NGOs, charities, and all the traditional banking system and general traditional financial industry. I mean, the financial inclusion is one of the most important topics and issues, broader recognized issues of the 21st century. And yet, we needed really a small company like Tether to make that difference. I mean, with billions or hundreds of billions spent in trying to solve that problem, you needed a couple of Italian guys trying to figure out how to create a better version of the US dollar. I mean, that is very, I'm very proud of that, but that's very annoying. Thank you. And so now you see, like, maybe JP Morgan and all these other guys that are, not happy with what we are doing. We have, as I said, 400 million users. But if you would go to JP Morgan and would ask them, oh, how many of these users I'm stealing from you, how many you would onboard? They would onboard 4, not 4 million, 4. The reason is that in order to be of interest of a banking system and banks, you would need to generate between $100 and $150 per, on average, I'm talking, per year in terms of commissions. And if you live in Haiti, the average salary of a person in Haiti is $1.34 per day. The average salary in many countries in Africa is $80 per month. You cannot pay like $100 per year in banking fees. Like, that is a lot of money. So that's why all this population turned to USDT, because they were left behind by the traditional financial system. So while many companies in the traditional financial system are upset with us, actually we are taking part of the population, of the world population, that they were not touching with a 10-foot pole.
This is kind of dovetails into what I've spoken to you and Giancarlo about, and what struck me as so shocking is that when we were kind of going through the history of Tether and what you guys do in nations like Africa and India and around the world, what hit me is like when someone's sending a remittance home from Canada or the United States to India or to a country in Africa, they're paying like a 15% commission to Western Union. And it just struck me when you guys are saying that doesn't exist here when you're moving Tether. And that's so disruptive on so many levels. And obviously the world has been fighting back on that and pushing back on that. But it's so good for the world. It's like you're getting rid of, like, why should the poorest countries in the world get 15% and 20% fees? They should be getting the lowest fees in the world. And that's what Tether is solving for. And that's why they have hundreds of millions of users. And that just stayed with me completely. It's so much so that, now we're working with a bunch of crypto companies, and I'm asking my team, it's a little easier to get USDT than it would be to get a wire transfer. So, it's so disruptive that the accounting firms in the US are still not caught up. But there is now this movement in the United States with the Trump administration and David Sachs leading the AI and the crypto space that's really kind of pushing as much as possible to get regulation into place and make it not so taboo anymore and really accept Bitcoin and crypto, which is showing great signs. So what can a country like Macedonia do? How does Macedonia get on the map in this world? Because personally, I have my personal views, and we've talked about it a lot, is What can we do here in this country? What will allow Macedonia to become the next Switzerland?
So, very good question. I think that, in my opinion, while in the last 20 years we heard a lot about globalization, I think that even considering the tariffs and all that, I mean, I think it's clear that countries are more and more trying to rely on themselves and looking inwards rather than outwards. Of course, trade deals and exports is very important, not saying that. But it's very important, and it's becoming more and more clear that countries need to be self-sovereign, right? Self-sovereign means you have to be independent, you need to own or you need to protect your own population's data, because that is fundamental. Otherwise, your population's data will just dematerialize within a large language model. So you really want to protect that as a government. And also you want to ensure that you can attract talent to build infrastructure locally, but also to become a powerhouse of technology for the future. And I think that when it comes to, for example, my specific industry, I can see how, again, as I refer to, boutique countries can lead the way on digital asset legislation. Good legislation, thorough legislation. There are different types of legislations available, just to touch base. I might not be very popular saying this, but the European legislation on digital assets, called MiCA, is a very, very bad regulation. It's very risky. It requires, for example, for stablecoin issuers like us to keep 60% of their reserves in uninsured cash deposits in a bank. That's a bad idea. Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate, New York Community Bank, they all blew up because of these problems, right? Having high leverage, fractional reserve banking. So if you're a stablecoin issuer, you want to buy as many T-bills as you can rather than, putting money in the bank that God knows, how money is then lent out. So unfortunately, Europe to me is, I'm European and Italian, so I'm allowed to say that. I mean, it's looking back to the past rather than looking at the future. Regulations in Europe are focusing more on, trying to defending the status quo of the traditional system rather than building for the future of society and humanity. They tend to regulate before understanding. I've been in so many discussions with the regulators, and we have been explaining how this technology is groundbreaking, and there was not much opening. And today, instead, you see the United States are looking at how to regulate stablecoins and digital assets in a very, very open way, for example. And so you see that both on AI and digital assets, Europe will be the last in class. And in a certain way, I was talking to a U.S. regulator, and I was describing how, in my opinion, Europe is the future Christmas ghost for the United States and other more proactive countries. So what I wish for boutique countries like Macedonia, and we are good friends with El Salvador ourselves, we helped El Salvador to craft a good, proper regulation based on FCA standards, but still good regulation on digital assets. We believe that there is so much opportunity in digital assets, and especially if you look at countries that are trying to impair this new advancement of technology, Macedonia can really lead the way, can become a hub, a regional hub for all the companies, because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of companies that are looking to relocate outside of Europe. And the only option at this moment, well, maybe the US will have some new regulations, but there is El Salvador as an option, and then that is very far from Europe. There is UAE, that is also very far and very hot in this moment of the year, and not everyone likes to be in 50 degrees. Macedonia is perfectly set to be a country that is just outside Europe, but is providing safety, because I'm not advocating, of course, for taking any crazy decision, but safety, high quality of laws, clarity, And also at the same time, it's not about just digital assets, but we talk about data safety and protecting and companies that wants to build tech businesses here.
I fully agree, and I'm very passionate about this for Macedonia. What he just said, I think, is like the blueprint for making Macedonia the lead in all of Europe for the modern financial system that is going to come. And I will say it bluntly, I think Europe already lost. America is on the right path, and they're going to get it done right. The administration's very focused on that. I'm very confident that they're going to lead. But here in Europe, I think there's an enormous opportunity, and all it is just legislation, making companies like Tether and making other crypto companies feel comfortable. You're going to get every Bitcoiner, every crypto company in Europe moving to Macedonia overnight with just proper legislation. I think this is like a game changer for the country, and I would love to see something like that happen. It's all. Everything I do I like to do bold. I like to swing for the fences. It's not about, waiting for someone else to lead. It's kind of going out there and doing something that no one else did. What Tether is doing, they're doing exactly that. They're basically they are the lead when it comes to modernizing the financial system, and they're going to be the biggest financial company. I personally think it's the greatest company in the world already. I don't think there's a better one. And I think that all the banks are already jealous of what you guys have. But I really think also at the same time, Macedonia as a country has this opportunity now to be that lead and take that step forward. Don't follow what Europe is doing here. Do something new, do something bold, and lead the new era of financial freedom, because it's sitting right in front of us to take. And I really hope that's something that we take. We have a couple more minutes left, and I'll kind of shift it a little bit. But now that the gatekeepers, obviously, of the finance and the media world, obviously Rumble has been challenging the media world on the gatekeepers. They're fighting at us all the time, corporate media versus social media and video platforms like us. Tether is doing the same thing. How long do you think it takes for this to change and to really, for us to jump in front of everyone else, both on the financial and the media landscape?
Well, I mean, if you see now in the US, talking about stable coins, everyone and their sisters are going to try to create a stable coin. But here's the thing, right? It's not about just everyone can say, oh, we'll create another video platform, right? But the problem is you need to understand deeply the sector. You need to also have a philosophy at heart, right? Otherwise, you're just going to create a copycat of YouTube. That's not the point. It's like you cannot, in my opinion, recreate another Tether just because what we do as a stablecoin, we realize before everyone else that US and Europe, or European Union, better put, are not the rightful market for stablecoins. Every company that now is launching a stablecoin, they will all want to compete in Europe and the US. That are the exact populations that they don't need a stablecoin. You have 30 billion people that are unbanked, that are desperate to have a stablecoin to protect their families, and yet all our competitors are looking to compete with us, also from the banking sector, trying to compete with us, but in exactly the countries that we are not interested in. We left Europe, so we decided to not apply for the MiCA license in Europe. Among $140 billion, do you know how much we lost because we decided to not apply for the European license in market cap?
Your market cap still continues to go up.
We lost only 300 million in market cap on 140 billion because we decided to leave Europe. It means that it's proving the point it's meaningless to have the usage of stable coins in Europe and the US. And yet, all these guys that are trying to copy us they only know those turfs. They will never touch with a 10-foot pole the people that actually need it. It's exactly like you. If someone want, the main issue that I see is that I think you and I have a good vision, and we are trying to fight for the people that don't have the same opportunity. You are the only company that really stood out and fought for freedom of speech when everyone was bending the knees to crazy censorship requests. And I wish to see more competitors, because I think that both of us will be much happier if there will be competitors like us, because the pie is so big, there is such a big opportunity, and if you had competitors yourself that would have the same philosophy, because it's easy to be YouTube, right? Not the same amount of users, but it's easy to cave and to bend the knee every single time. But if there were more like you, it would be much harder for the system to fight you back. And the same thing happens to us. But I think that this train will never stop. So I think that together, and that's why also I'm very proud of the investment that we made in Rumble, together there is no way to stop us.
I agree. I'll end with a very quick question. What's the price of Bitcoin in 1 year and in 5 years?
All right, no financial advice. So in 1 year, I would say, by the end of the year, I would say 170K. 5 years, I would say above 500K. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you to Paolo, Claudia, Giancarlo for coming from Lugano to be here today. I think it's one of the greatest honors to have the greatest company in the world step foot in this country. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Chris. You're very kind. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome.